Oh, now you're muted. Now you're not. Hey, everybody. Where
Hello,
are you?
everybody. This is the SKTLs Weekly Volunteer Call. Um, with us today, Dan Geraci, founder or CEO of Chairman of Freefall Aerospace and Chairman of the Planetary Society, and Greg Amorati. If you can hear us there, Greg.
I think he's trying to get his microphone to work because he's going regular and then mute and then regular. Oh, I hear something. Is that you, Greg? Making noise? Okay, can't hear anyone. Hmm. I've
Well,
had the
Dan, I
same
guess
issues
until
today.
Greg gets ready, what's new in space news?
Yeah, well, there's a few different things going on. And it's one thing about space, it doesn't care what time of year it is,
Yeah,
and uh, and so unlike many people, it's not preparing for the holiday season or taking any time off. But
yeah.
a couple things have been going on. Intuitive Machines that we've talked about repeatedly, that was going to launch um, in January, to land on the moon and do some cool stuff as the first or second piece of American hardware to do so since Apollo. And the launch got pushed to February because of some issues with SpaceX's manifest. It's supposed to go up on a Falcon 9, and there were issues at Cape Kennedy where it's going to go up from Launch Pad 39A, and they can't move it to another launch site because that's the only pad equipped to do liquid oxygen and methane
Okay.
fueling. So it's got to wait. There were some weather issues that pushed the manifest for SpaceX, and then there's this notion of there's a launch ahead of it for the X-37B, the classified spacecraft
Are they
that
still
keeps
waiting to
getting
launch that, I
sent
guess?
up. Yeah, and the problem is that goes up on a Falcon Heavy, and
Mm,
it takes several weeks to convert the launch pad from Falcon Heavy to Falcon 9 and vice
okay.
versa. So there's all these other things in there that are, mucking it up, if you will. But nothing that is really an Intuitive Machines issue. On
Yeah.
the X-37B, there were some issues there from a rocket standpoint that they had to make sure that they could clear up. Um,
Mr.
so,
Izzy.
oh, Greg, is that you?
Mr. Izzy, how you doing, buddy?
Greg,
Now
we can
life
hear.
is good, huh?
Greg, we can hear you.
Spend a lot
And
of money over the holidays so far?
Greg, we can hear you.
Oh,
Should
that's
I mute
awesome.
him?
Yeah. Before he says something, we're all going to regret.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've been trying to keep up with that USS F-52 launch, and it doesn't look like there's a lot of details on when they're scheduled to do that at this point.
No. Things have been pretty, they're pretty hush hush. We finally got new leaders appointed by the Senate, including a couple of 4 stars for Space Force,
Okay.
good generals. So that's another thing that happened. I put an article in the in not in the chat, but in the on the link for um, this whole orbital capacity issue. It's an opinion piece, but about sustainably developing space. And it's once again, it's just a debris issue, and everything we're going to have to deal with there. So keeping that out front. Other issues going on. We have the continuing debate that's going on around the Mars sample return mission,
Mm,
um, for those. And I think if we try to turn off Greg's mute. Maybe he can talk.
Okay.
Let's see here, because I'm just trying to get him. So let's see if he can
I'm trying to take it.
talk. He's got his mute on. He's got his mute on too, because I told him we could hear him. So
Okay.
but hang on. This is silly. This is how we're supposed to be the day after a holiday.
Yeah, we're not even through New Year's yet.
I've had nothing but technical issues on every call I've been in, either myself or other people, all day today. So the gremlins are out and alive.
Yeah, well, maybe the StreamYard folks and the Zoom folks are actually off for Christmas already.
Yeah, I think they left and unplugged the system when they left. But there's a anyway. I think that one thing we have to keep in mind, with Mars sample return is just that here we have this massive mission that cost a fortune. We're going to go pick up all these samples with this exotic capability on the Perseverance rover, and leave all these samples there to be picked up within 10 years and brought back to Earth.
Wow.
So when they did that, you would have thought that they would have had that funded in part of the mission for Perseverance. All they did was appropriate properly for the Perseverance rover to get there and do all of its work. And now there's a bun fight going on inside of NASA and with Congress about funding the sample return mission. Makes no sense.
Okay.
I mean, let's go spend billions of dollars on a mission to go collect samples, and we'll deal with actually getting the samples later. So
right.
And
so what is the debate between like contractors on who's going to get the work or how we're going to do it?
It's the budget. It's costing more than was proposed. Gee, what a surprise. A government project that's overrun. And then in order to pay for it, Congress doesn't want to appropriate more money to NASA. So then it becomes the age-old rob Peter to pay Paul. So then the part of the NASA budget that's getting hammered is the planetary science budget, which is all these other missions to do really good science. And it's the classic case of the giant project, the giant mission, sucking all the oxygen out of the room.
Yeah.
And taking the money from other programs, because this is a big one. This has a lot of congressional support, a lot of jobs, a lot of NASA centers and political districts that were involved. It's still politics at the end of the day. And so the screaming that's going back and forth about, well, don't take money out of my program to pay for that.
Yeah.
Just give us more money. And that's the typical thing you get in these, projects run inside academia with NASA, is this notion that somebody's paying for this. It's not us. And, stop doing this. Just give us more money and pay for everything, so nobody has to cut anything. And it's a tough argument, because you've got these projects. You've got people that have spent 10, 15, 20 years of their careers on these missions. And then you get down to the final, 100 yards of the race, and somebody's going to pull the rug out from under your feet. And on the Planetary Society board, I have more than a handful of planetary scientists that are on that board who are involved in all these major missions. None of them are happy, and they're not even they're even sitting there saying, well, I've got this mission and you've got that mission. Who's going to give up what? And unfortunately, it may come to that, or we're going to fight, as everybody should, to get the proper amount of money appropriated, because this is about doing real good science and exploration. And how would we feel if we go through all this trouble, we leave the things laying there, and it's China that picks them up in 10 years, or it's or it goes so long that it's our astronauts picking them up when we land on Mars. It's silly. It's really silly. So having said that, it's high stakes poker right now, and this will go on probably until the early spring.
Really?
But they still don't have a mission designed they have to build everything and get it there. So we're still looking at 10 years from
Really?
whenever they make a final decision to get the, what kind of what kind of spacecraft are we going to use? What's the retrieval process going to be? Do we, use a modified helicopter now to go around and pick them all up and bring them back? Do we use a rover to go pick them all up? It's just amazing.
Is there an estimate for what they think it will cost at this point?
Oh, this will be, a couple $1 billion probably.
Wow.
It depends on what they use as a
Yeah.
retrieval.
And the goal is to
and-
pick up just samples of the train itself, or
Well, what has been done is, as Perseverance is driven around, it's the sophisticated sampling system underneath that drills these cores into the surface,
okay,
pulls them up, puts them into these sealed, tubes, and then lays them on the ground and keeps going.
I see.
And the notion was, then we're going to leave them there, and then we'll come back and get them with another piece of hardware that's going to follow along. We know where they all are, and pick them up and return them to a small craft that will have landed, and then return them to the craft, and it'll take off and fly back to Earth. So, needless to say, it's always good to have the end of the mission figured out before you start the mission, but apparently not.
I have to say that the finding all of the samples and picking them up and getting them back to Earth does seem like the harder part of the two.
It's actually,
I see why they put it off. They're like, let's deal with that when we get there.
We've got the GPS. We know exactly where they are. So
good.
That actually, it's just getting the right.
You assume nobody messed with them, right?
Right.
no Martians.
Yeah. If they
move, then we have a bigger problem.
Yeah, we've discovered life. No need to test the samples.
Yeah.
Hang on one second.
Sure.
Okay, I'll be out. So it's going to be a real challenge. It's going to be a real challenge. But anyway, that's a big one. Getting these other landers on the moon, should have a couple of them there, as I said earlier, in the next 60 days. That's going to be a challenge. It'll be exciting to be back on the surface again. Sad, considering that, it's, 60 years later. But nonetheless, I think that'll be a good place. Other things that I've noticed too, from a space standpoint, that I think it'd be good if you want to talk about markets today. I don't know that we're seeing any slowdown from the government in terms of procuring technology. Things seem to be heating up. I've been in meetings with defense contractors and others in the last week, and there is a very high sense of urgency to continue to pull in technology from wherever it can be found. And I think that's going to continue. So the space economy is going to continue to be driven or pulled along by the appetite of the Defense Department.
Is it more Defense Department than it is NASA?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just NASA gets the headlines and has a small budget. Defense Department tries to fly under the radar, and they have an endless budget. So, and that's where the investment money's going, to companies who have, that kind of who have government contracts.
And what about in terms of like the communications market? Is there any government funding? I mean, I know there's the SpaceX last week lost their grant from the FCC, but other than that, rural broadband type of stuff, is there a government focus worldwide on communications as well?
Big time. It's the backbone of anything we're doing in space is the communications network. So there's a lot going on there. There's arguments about what the FCC should be involved in or not, and all the overreach, and what do they know about in space communications. And
Sure.
so
And I think that was like one of the SpaceX arguments last week that the dissenting commissioners made. They're like, well, they moved the goalpost. They just created a new standard for space constellations that they've never applied to traditional fiber networks.
Yep.
So well, why is FCC even involved at that point?
Why don't you talk to today's finish on the market? And I'm gonna go check. Apparently somebody walked in, and I'm just gonna go check. I'm gonna take myself off camera here, and I'll let you go.
Okay. Sure. So today was one of those crazy days in the market, not unlike any other we've had in 2023, where we opened slightly down. Indexes were down for a little bit, but then for the most part, excuse me, things were higher all day, and it was I think the S&P is working on its 8th straight week of gains or something like that. Basically, every day since November 1st, the markets have gone up and small caps have gone up, and today was no different. And then within the last 30 minutes or 45 minutes of trading, all of a sudden things took a turn for the worst. The index is closed down, probably their biggest down close in 6 weeks, I would say, maybe 2 months. But the S&P down 1.25%. I think the NASDAQ was down 1.5%. By the close, semiconductor stocks were down 2.5%, almost 3%. Software stocks were down 2%, and both software and semiconductor stocks have been some of the strongest in the market all year. We've been saying trading with Cody and other avenues that we think both semiconductor stocks and software stocks are a little crowded at the moment. It just valuations are stretched. There's zero fear in the market. I mean, the average software stock probably trading at 12 to 15 times our sales, and the best software stocks, which are good companies and growing fast, but they're trading 20, 22, 24, 25 times sales, which is a lot. And you're counting on years and years of high double-digit growth. You need 20, 30, 40% growth to justify those valuations if you're going to get a reasonable return in the next decade. And so with software stocks always trade, high multiples. There's no doubt about that, but they're definitely have gotten stretched over the last month and really over the course of the year. So all that said, it wasn't a big surprise to us that something like today's action could happen without notice and without any real news. Yields, I think, were down even a little bit. So which would you think would help the markets and has been driving equity valuations higher? But with all that, with any market, I mean, there's just a chance sometimes that there can be a sell-off. That we always say there's buyers higher and sellers lower, and sometimes there's those limit orders in there or margin calls, and a little bit of selling happens, and then bam, 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 you're down 1% or 1.5% by the end of the day for no reason, really. But.
Yeah, this time of year, growing up in the securities industry, it was, either lose your access to the markets and don't pay attention, or if you're deeply involved and you're active, then get ready for whiplash, because there's no rhyme or reason. There's too many interested parties who are either rebalancing portfolios, or you have the distribution phenomena that happens with the mutual fund industry that starts in November, where they're doing a lot of issuance and distributions, and they're driving people crazy with tax liability, and they're trimming positions. So there's a lot of unnatural selling and buying activity that happens at the end of the year. And plus you have all the big traders are not on the floor. They're not working. They're off. And the junior varsity's in charge. And and that's a real thing. It's like, we always used to joke the day after Thanksgiving, the market would be open, and it's like don't do anything with your portfolio because you got a bunch of people practicing,
Yeah.
doing on the job training on the exchange
Yeah, I believe
on
that.
those days. And so this is just one of those weeks where, if you're doing year end selling and stuff like that, that's great.
Mhm.
But
Well, it was
just be,
funny this morning. To your point, Dan, Tom Lee was on CNBC, and he's a big bull. He's been very bullish all year, and he gets on right when the sell off starts to happen, and he's making his bull case. Stocks higher 20-30% next year, and software is great, semis are great, and about halfway through the deal, the CNBC anchor stops him. He's like, "Well, I don't know if you've seen in the last 10 minutes, but since you've been on, the markets are down 1%." And he's like, "Well, it doesn't really matter. Stocks are still going to go higher." He's convinced that fund managers have underperformed this year, and so they're chasing stocks and buying into the year end to try to catch up. And but that works both ways, right? I mean, if you have gains and you see a sell off, then you want to sell and lock them in. But
well, one of the things that happens,
Mhm.
and this is where quote individual investors get the daylights beat out of them trying
Yeah.
to trade in the market is, so you have fund managers. Maybe they had a decent year, maybe they had a bad year.
Mhm.
And so if you have a nice sell off, people can get in there and buy at much lower prices because what are they focused on now? Their 2024 calendar year performance.
Yep.
And so if I can get a bunch of positions in my portfolio with as low a cost base as possible coming into January, and then everybody gets in line and we've got a new year and gee, everybody's positive and things will start behaving normally, their chances of better returns for the year are boosted because they had a buying opportunity at year end.
Mhm.
And if there's selling, then it becomes okay, well, it's a tax loss transaction. So I can
Yeah.
justify getting out and then either getting back in or buying new stuff, albeit at lower prices. So there's always somebody making money in the market, and that's the key. The old saying, that's what makes a market. Somebody's selling and somebody's buying the same stuff.
Sure.
So
Sometimes more people
um,
are making money than losing, and sometimes more people are losing money than making. But there's always both
but
happening.
people just have to understand that with the lion's share of the activity coming from institutions who have a very different time horizon than many individuals, and the fact that most 60 to 70% of the mutual fund assets in the United States are in retirement plans.
Mhm.
And so their objective, that's not money that gets reallocated a lot. That's not money that moves around. Those are pretty static funds. I can
Yeah.
remember, when we had to shift the focus of the Fidelity Magellan Fund because it was, it had become predominantly a retirement account fund, and the trading in that and the management of the portfolio had to shift to reflect that because
Really.
it wasn't the regular account way of playing the market any longer. It was
Yeah.
predominantly held in 401k plans. And so, those are the things you have to be aware of, is that the old saying, the old African saying, when the elephants fight, the ants take a beating. And so that's pretty much the market, especially at this time of year. You just got to be careful because you cannot make decisions based on what you see in this week. You can't.
Yeah.
You're always going to be 2 steps behind the people that know what's going on. So
Yeah. No doubt. So
stay out.
did the Magellan fund go more to like a passive type strategy?
It went to a not so much passive, but because there is no passive management at Fidelity, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's all active, but it went to much more of a lower the risk taking profile, raise the exposure to continue to be bigger blue chips, drive maybe the dividend income component got a little bit healthier,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. Because it was for steady growth with a higher factor of preservation of capital when you have a retirement account. That's what you want. So, but that, and that's been the case. These funds get so big, they are the market.
Sure.
You look at Vanguard and you look at all these, big funds. They become the market. They become the index that they're tracking to, their benchmark, and they're not so nimble. Especially when you've got a fund that's big enough that it's owning, high single digit, mid single digit percentages of the companies in the portfolio. You can't help but, and it used to be, the thing on the street, with Fidelity was always, the traders would be aware and they'd say, gee, because the nickname for the company is Fido, is Fido, lightening up a position or not? Because there's a flood of volume coming into the market on the sell side or the buy side. Gee, Fidelity's buying. And there were statistics about once they took a position in a company, those stocks went up an average of 11% in the following year. And so there's a lot of people tracking that stuff. So you just have to pay attention. People want to do what the big players do. You have to watch what the big players do. You have to see what they buy. Look at their portfolios and see what they own, their top 10 positions. You can tell a lot about funds by looking at their online profiles and looking at the top 10 or 20 positions and the weighting by either by industry group or by cap size. And you can see exactly where those managers think the opportunity is in the market. So, and whether they're value or growth, that's the thing most people make the mistake on is, I'm diversified. I own 5 mutual funds and they're all large cap growth funds. You're not diversified. You've tripled down on the same thing. Do you own value or do you own growth? What do you own? Large cap, mid cap, small cap? That 9-box style matrix is really where people need to get diversified. So you have exposure to all parts of the market. Otherwise, you're missing out on performance for half of every cycle. If you own all growth funds or all value funds or all large cap funds or all small cap funds. So, for sure.
We have another participant here, Dr. Mudd. Hello.
Hey, how you doing, Mudd?
What's going on, guys?
Good to see you.
Good to see you. I was going to call you today, Dan.
Jeez. We have to catch up for the holidays.
Yeah, you around tomorrow or Friday?
Yeah.
I don't. Okay, I'm on StreamYard.
Yes, you're on the show. You're in the show.
Live on YouTube.
Wow. Okay, I'll hold
it. Yeah. So what's going on? We don't have our buddy Cody here today. He's not around for the call. How are things back in Boston? You look like you're sitting outside there. You look a little chilly.
Yeah, well, it's been it's not quite seasonably. It only gets cold now in January and February. It snows in January and February. I think in about 50 years we become a mid-Atlantic state. They saw a stat. There is 1 foot less of snow.
Jeez,
a lot, right? For this over the last 30 years.
Wow. That's not a good sign.
No,
that's not a good sign. But of course, longer summers would be nice.
Yeah. Real quick, guys. So I'm on my laptop. Cody sent me the link I'm on my cell phone, but I can't really see you guys because it's so small.
Yeah.
When I'm on StreamYard now, how do I find you? I just created
you found us. You got right into the show.
No, but the laptop. The laptop.
Oh, it's
if you click on the link from that you clicked on your phone, if you do that on your computer, it should bring you right into the channel.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, all right. Sorry.
So, but we're just getting ready to finish up. We'll have to connect. I just moved to Tucson this past weekend.
Wow.
From Houston. That was I've only moved about 100 times, and yet again, it was an experience I never want to repeat. I don't know why I keep saying that because I keep repeating it, but
Moving's not fun.
no, no, it was less than fun. Trust me. But anyway, it's done.
Well, obviously we need to come visit, but Jonathan Richmond lives in Tucson. No. His partner Tommy does, I believe. I don't know if you remember Jonathan Richmond, but the musician from Something About Mary.
Yes.
I think he lives in Northern California. His drummer, Tommy, lives in Tucson.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, God. There's a classic.
Well, I won't keep you guys.
Your prior life.
Happy New Year. Happy holidays. Dan, I'll check in with you tomorrow.
All righty, buddy.
Great.
Take it easy. Good seeing you.
I can't even see your name.
It's Bryce. It's
Bryce.
Bryce Smith. I work for Cody.
Yeah, good. All right, great.
All right, bud.
Perfect.
Somebody's got to watch after Cody.
Well, great.
Peace.
Well, if there's nothing else, that'll wrap up our call. Dan, last word.
Listen, everybody have a safe and happy holiday season here. Stay out of trouble. Spend time with your loved ones, and with everything going on in the world, be thankful for where we all live.
Absolutely.
So,
thanks, Dan.
All right. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, everybody.
see ya.
See ya.
Bye.